Yup. Are we live? According to OBS, we are. And we're good here too? Great. Okay. So hello Twitch. Hello YouTube. And welcome back to Trash to Treasure. Live. We're going to be editing the blue section of cards. We have the black video coming out tomorrow, so I've got that all done already. I just want to get the blue cards pulled out before we even talk about the next steps. So, I'd love for you guys in the community, if there's anybody here, to jump in when you can. I actually will throw out a little shout to my channel. Let me grab that. Copy. I'm gonna go here. And then we gotta get my channel out of here. Copy. And we're gonna paste that too. Okay. I'm live. I'm live over there. And that should be it. So, I'm now completely done with all the social work. Let's go for it. So, hello everyone, and welcome back to Trash Treasure 2. We've kind of decided already that we're going to be building this as a... We've kind of decided already that we're going to build this as a commander cube. So it's going to be a little bit bigger than the last one. And we're going to involve a lot more multiplayer kind of stuff. The legend cards, like Daxos, which is highlighted here, are going to matter because they're going to be able to partner with every other monocolored legend. And, you know, we're just going to go from there. So, I'd love for you guys to hang out. I want you guys to help me make the cuts. But if not, I'm going to be describing what I'm doing when I'm doing it, so that at least on the YouTube video later, people will understand. So the first thing looking at is we have 167 blue cards. I think for 480, we're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of about 80 cards as the final number. Maybe it's lower, maybe it's like 70. I'll have to run the numbers because I have never built a 480. However, we're going to do this. And we're just going to cut what we can to bring this number way down. If we ever cut too much, I can always add back in. But right now, I mean, especially blue. Blue's never going to use 100 one-drops. So we're going to keep 2 or 3, and we'll trash the rest. That'll give the players who are playing with it the ability to kind of make their own decisions with what they want to do. But it's also not going to back us into a corner saying, okay, blue's going to be, say, an aggro color or a control color. We want to give options for everybody. So, let's see. First, we got a couple that I'm absolutely going to keep no matter what. Things like Spectral Sailor, because it can give you card advantage. Not only is it a 1/1 flying man, but it can give you card advantage as long as you have mana to sink into it. And with my understanding, Commander's a bit grindy, so that's going to be always welcome. Another card that I'm definitely going to keep is Terramander, another flying man, but this time it can become a real threat in the air as long as you're casting instants and sorceries. Really good option if you're a Spellslinger type or, you know, a blue-red tempo or something, that's a fine keep too. So that's 2 cards that we're going to keep already. Maybe we'll keep 2 more for now, and then we'll move on to the 2s. I like keeping the Rishadan Dockhand because it is a rare, and it also is a Rishadan port as a body. The body's not bad, it's a merfolk. There might be some slight typal synergies in the cube, so something to keep in mind. Especially with tomorrow's video, stay tuned for that. But I kind of like having that just as a thing, but even still, looking at the Tideshaper, that's actually probably better. Because it's going to be a 1-mana 2/2. You don't even have to kick it, because definitely somebody else you're playing with is also going to be having islands. It's not as long as defending player controls an island, it's as long as a controller controls an island. And you're also able to do things with your own lands to help make them more valuable or what have you. So I like Tideshaper, I think, even more than Rishadan Dockhand. Even though the Dockhand is such an iconic callback and it's a rare, I think that might get cut. This is another cool card to throw in there. Gearsmith Prodigy. I don't know that blue is going to be an artifact color in this cube. Quick scroll down to the artifacts and see what we have. Yeah, we've only got a couple, and even those I'm probably not keeping a lot of. We don't have the crab on the sorceries. So what I'm going to do... Adrian, can we not do that right now, buddy? So what I'm going to do right now is we're going to cut basically everything else. I didn't see enough Surveil in black, so we'll cut that. Oh, damn. So there's that. Symmetry Sage is a fun idea, but I don't really see any value in it. Prophet of Distortion is, again, the same thing as a Spectral Sailor, but this time it needs colorless mana. I think in kind of normal budget cubes, this wouldn't be a problem. You know, Pain lands make colorless mana, or sometimes you'll have some cool utility lands that also make colorless mana, but I think in this space, it's just not needed. Omenhawker is going to make the cut for now, because it is a Soul Ring. It's not the Soul Ring, but it's a type of Soul Ring. Minister of Inquiries, I don't think energy's going to get there. The Grifter can go. And then maybe we'll keep the Gearsmith Prodigy. So that's going to be 6 cuts to the blue ones. I'm pretty happy with that. Maybe we'll come down a little bit more. So we have 2 Flying Men, so I don't need Merfolk Windrobber. But Merfolk Windrobber actually has relevant text. Oof, this is tough to judge, too, because Windrobber, the more the game goes on, is just going to give you cards, and then if you're able to, say, Abide and Grace them, you can, like, legitimately just sacrifice this draw card and bring it back every end step. So, it's a pretty good, plus it's a Merfolk and a Rogue. It's got really excellent typing. Spectral Sailor, Terramander, Windrobber, and maybe we trash the rest. Yeah, the Dockhand's not going to make the cut here. I don't think the Gearsmith Prodigy does either. Even in the best cases, blue isn't going to be aggressive enough to want to have a 1-mana 2/2. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, that brings us down to 5. Maybe one more cut. Tideshaper is the 1-mana 2/2 with some good typing. Spectral Sailor will give you a card. Terramander can be a threat. Omenhawker's on the bubble. It's a very good bubble, though. Alright, let's just save those changes. We've still got plenty of time to cut these cards. I think right now, those 5 are good 5 to have. Now, let's look at our 2s, which are much, much bigger. The first ones I'm going to look at are the legends. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 blue legends. So, we absolutely don't need to keep them all. And in fact, I was thinking Go Shintai is gone. I didn't see any white shrines. I didn't see any black shrines. So, even in the best case, you're only getting a couple of mil on this. Sure, it's a 0-4 flying legendary wall, but you're not really building towards anything. And you want the commanders to build towards something when possible. You know what I mean? Like Tetsuko Umezawa says, hey, if you got little creatures, they can't be blocked. Essior just makes all of your other stuff harder to kill, which is totally fine. There's a 1-mana 1-3 flying out of the command zone. I just don't think Go Shintai does enough, so we're going to remove that card. Now we're going to go through the rest of the non-commanders in order. Academy Lore Master, I'm going to keep it for now. It'll give everybody else the choice of either drawing cards or casting them, basically. But if you are the deck with Academy Lore Master, you're trying to make it so you can play at that flash speed. Daring Saboteur, when it deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a discard. Okay, so how many of these do we have? We have Daring Saboteur. That's the only one, and that's kind of crazy. Generally, especially in bulk, you'll find a bunch of the 2-mana blue looters. You know, Merfolk Looter, or I think it's Shadow one, or, you know, what have you. This is just the only one we have, so unfortunately, it's going to be kept. Deranged Assistance. It's a blue mana dork. It's got great art by Nels Ham. But I don't know that blue really needs... I mean, it helps give you self-mill, too. And again, we're probably going to keep a lot of cards. Let me just quickly scribble out the numbers. So, 480. We're going to say probably 80 lands. So that's 400 cards. And then we divide that by... Well, then we subtract... Let's say 5 per color for multicolored. So 50. That's 350. Let's say 50 artifacts. That's 300. So that's about 60 cards and everything. So we've still got a lot of wiggle room to cut because, yeah. So we'll keep the Deranged Assistant for now. It looks like what we're looking for is about 60 cards per color. Cast a Exoric spell. Target player puts the top 2 cards of the library into their graveyard. That's kind of cool because it says target player, so it'll let you target yourself too if you're trying to fill your yard. Same thing that Deranged Assistant does, so let's continue. Glint Crane. It's not a bad body. Can look for an artifact. Like I mentioned, I don't think blue is the artifact color in this cube, so we'll get rid of it. Alright, the Nautilus. And then we come right back to this. Love these type of cards. They have existed for most of Magic's history. This is a 2-mana 1/4 or a 2-mana 4/1. It's got Vigilance. It is an artifact creature. Having secondary typing will matter for a lot of things that we want to do. So we'll keep it. Hisoka's Guard. You may choose not to untap it as long as it remains tapped. Target creature control other than it can be the target spell's release. That's a pretty good protection spell. We're not going to have a lot of protection. You know, we're not going to have Swiftfoot Boots. We're not going to have any of the good stuff that regular commander has. So this might be a very logical way for you to keep your commander safe. Ink Dissolver. Look at the top card of your library. If it shares a creature type with Ink Dissolver, you may reveal it. If you do, each opponent mills. So, the fact that it is a Merfolk wizard and is looking for those kinship is very good. But again, I don't know that in any environment, we're going to be milling people out. So, let's toss it. Night Veil Sprite is just good as a flying, continually surveil thing to help fill the yard. Omen Speaker is fine. Not excited to ever cast an Omen Speaker, but it's okay. Oracle of Tragedy is kind of in the same vein. It's just fine. You can either draw, discard, filter your draws, or you can bring some big stuff back from your yard into your deck, which might be a way to help get there against your opponents. Parselmere, totally cool card. Again, artifact, and a clue, and a mirror. Has the clue text. Just, it's fine. Sigil Starfish is not fine. The Silvergill Adept. If you can cast this on 2, it is excellent. However, you can't always cast it on 2. We are going to have a bunch of merfolk just kind of hanging out, so maybe it can get there. We'll see. Artifact or Pirate. So this is slightly better than the one that we cut, the Glintnest Crane.
Papa,
Yes, honey?
can I have almost not letting me hug?
Is it because she's going potty?
Yeah.
Got a good hug? Okay, so I think we're going to cut the Staunch Crewmate as well, for basically the same reason. Supreme Phantom is a very cool spirit anthem. I know for a fact Spectral Sailor is a spirit, but we also might be making spirit tokens, so it's something to keep an eye on for now. If we only end up with the Spectral Sailor, this is an easy cut. However, if we end up with more, then we can just do that. Thopter Mechanic, draw your second card each turn. This is something we want to encourage a million times over, so it's in. Next up, Thrumming Bird. This is in a million times. If the cube was 1 card for each color, Thrumming Bird might be my blue pick. Vidalcan Engineer. 2 mana of any one color to your mana pool. Spend this mana to only play artifact spells or activate abilities of artifacts. So it's a little bit more restrictive than Omenhawker, which lets you do... So I think in that case what we're going to do is we're going to pull it. So it's slightly worse than the Omenhawker because it's more restrictive, but it lets you play the artifact spells. So yeah, we're going to... That's gone. Then Vertigo Spawn, tap a creature, doesn't untap. It's totally fine. Good defensive body. 2 mana. It freezes a opponent a card has. It's fine. But we still need to make some more cuts. Hold on just 1 second, everybody. Okay, sorry about that, everyone. Just had to deal with a little something at home. So, back to work. We have a few cuts already, so let's save those changes. We still have a bunch of 2-drops, and we're only going to want maybe 5 or 6 at the end of the day. However, those first cuts were super easy, so let's go back one more time. So Derange Assistant, I think, actually does the job well enough. We'll keep it for now, but it's definitely on the bubble. You don't expect blue to have mana ramp anyway, and now especially so when we need our cards to be encouraging or working with other archetypes. The excavator is a pretty cool idea, but I think at this point, mill isn't going to happen, so it's not even worth thinking about. Omen speaker, like I said, super basic. We can take some of the more vanilla looking things out and kind of just leave us with some, like, the good stuff. And then when we're doing the final cuts, we'll talk about cutting which good stuff from where. Okay. Next, we're going to look at the threes. We have three drop legends. And I think, in this case, I want to keep them all. It's tough because three drops that are legends in probably what we're going to keep as 5 is very difficult to justify. But at least at this point of cutting, we can keep them all. And maybe we'll talk about pulling one out later. Unctus for sure is going to be at least the one that makes it. This is such a cool card to have found. So Acquisition Octopus. Love this card. It gives you the card draw that you usually find on these 3-mana creatures for blue, but it also can become an equipment. So, very cool. This has fake prowess. So it's a 3-mana, what is it called? A Windhaven. That's the name of the generic. Enclave Elite. Just 3-mana multi-kicker. That does not do nearly enough. Goodbye. Exclusion Mage. Love to have the, I'm blanking on the name, the jellyfish. Love to have those effects in cube. This might be the one we have for this cube. We'll see. Yeah, we're going to cut energy. There's already enough going on that we don't need to add another external thing to track. Now, see, in my opinion, Jessian Thief is way better than even Wind Mage. The Thief doesn't naturally have flying, but it can bait your opponents into making bad plays. You attack with the Thief, you're going to get to draw a card. They might block with something, you play a combat trick, you kill something else, and then this can eat the other thing. I like that a whole lot more than just having the flying body. Kelpie Guide is a idea, less so a card. Is there a world in which we want to be able to untap things? That's very much a... It's very much a kind of combo idea. I can't think of a huge good use for untapping another target permanent you control, except for giving a creature fake vigilance or maybe getting one more land on your 3-drop. I don't like it, so it's gone. Mistwalker, it's kind of got that ability I was talking about with the, where is it? The Nautilus. It's got the same idea, where you can take points from its defense and put it to the attack, plus it's flying, and it's a changeling, so it's going to matter for everything you do. So, that stays for now. Phantom Ninja, just a 2/2 that can't be blocked. Kind of boring. Goodbye. Puppeteer. See, this is kind of the Kelpie Guide at home. It's going to make it so that it's better in a lot of ways. It's got better typing, and it will only hit creatures, but it can also tap them down. So I think of the two, I don't know that we want to keep either, but I think of the two, we're going to... Oh, I've already removed Kelpie Guide, so no big deal. Sea Drake. I have a Weird spot in my heart for this card. Just a really old card that I used to love, but I do think that it's not really doing enough right now. Skilled Animator can just animate some artifact, kind of random token or whatever you have laying around, into a 5/5. That's excellent. Even if it's making something that's not a threat into the threat. I love it. Slippery Scoundrel. Again, this is kind of the better version of the Phantom Ninja, because it doesn't naturally have can't be blocked, but assuming you ascend, which shouldn't be too hard in a format like this, you're going to get hexproof and can't be blocked, plus better typing, and only one blue pip. Triton Fortune Hunter. Let's see what kind of spells we might want to hit with that before we do anything else. That's what I thought. We're not going to have nearly enough support. You would have to be focused on this card for a cross color archetype. So I think we're just going to remove that. Sheriff Tracker, dies, draw a card. Human Pirate. And Encore. Fine for now. Now this is interesting. This gives you ideas. It's way more expensive than the Puppeteer, but it's going to allow you to get counters on your -1/-1 counters on your opponent's creatures, and then with things like Thrumming Bird, you can actually potentially kill them. Especially if you start putting them on a bunch of creatures all at once, and then do the Proliferate turn, you can out of nowhere shatter somebody. So I think I'm going to cut Puppeteer, because even though this costs 1,000,000 mana, it costs 3 to cast, it needs to not die, and then 3 in tap to do it. I think the ceiling on this is so much better than Puppeteer. I want to keep it. Yeah, I'll remove the Puppeteer. Vizier Tumbling Sands. Again, it's the other half of the Kelpie Guide. Gets to untap another target permanent. It's got great creature types. It's got the cycle. If you untap a permanent. This is mostly used these days in Pioneer Lotus Field, but I think it's got a point here. Wall of Frost. This is kind of the Vertigo spawn, but bigger. They have the same text. When it blocks a creature, tap that creature. Doesn't untap during the next untap step. But Wall of Frost is way, way bigger. If we're only going to keep one, I'm going to keep this one. So maybe we just start there. We pull out the Vertigo spawn and go on. Warden of Evos Isle. Flyers might be a thing. Wizards might be a thing. Party might be a thing. This is totally fine. It's an Aven. It's a Wind Aven with nothing but upside. I'm gonna keep it. Waterwind Scout. Another Wind Aven with upside that makes a map token. The map tokens are cool. I really like the idea. And then... Excuse me, everybody. I've got to pause again. Hold on. Okay. So I think that's it for the 3 drops. Let's make these changes and go to the next one. Starting with our legendary, Sinai, Eye of the Storm. Flying when it attacks, scry X, where it's enough number of attacking creatures with flying. There we go. There's your flying matters. That'll go well with the Warden of Avos Isle. Cool. Archaeomancer. Love this card. It's probably one of the best abilities, best cards for this ability. I know that we didn't get it in this set, but doing something like Ephemerate loops with this in Pauper is a blast. I encourage you all to try it. So I'm going to keep that in for now. It's a dopey little body, but it gives you a powerful spell back. Both creatures have hexproof. That's a very cool idea, but I think the body's too small. At 4 mana, we either want something really cool like Archaeomancer, or we want something very big. Yeah, the Maniac is too small. Skirmisher is an idea. We'll keep it for now, just because it's got that Encore and it was kind of made for Commander, but we'll see. If you control 3 or more creatures that share a creature type, put a +1/+1 counter on this, and then scry 1. Sure. Could be a 4 mana 3/5 that lets you scry. Okay. Okay, so very cool with this Siren Reaver that, assuming you attack, doesn't even need to have dealt damage, but assuming you attack, it's a 3 mana 3/2 flyer. Totally fine. Don't love the types. Pirate has a small sub-theme I'm noticing, but don't love the types. It's a fine body. Keep going. Skatewind Spy. Again, very cool. The only creature type that matters on this is Rogue. It's only a 2/3, but it buffs everybody else who has a +1/+1 counter on it, potentially giving you the ability to alpha with something. That's an idea for now. We're just going to keep it in the back pocket. Soul's One Spirit when it enters unblockled. No, that's super nothing. Triton Cavalry. Yeah, okay. Whispering Wizard. When you cast a non-creature spell, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. Its ability triggers only once. So, those are spirits. So, another spirit maker for our Spirit Lord. This is Murmuring Mystic at home. It's not nearly as good, but it still gives you, as a Spellslinger type deck, some benefit. Gonna keep it. Youthful Scholar just wants to die, so we'll kill it. Alright, and now into the 5s. First, we have our 5 mana legendary. Flying 2/4, return a land you control to its owner's hand, create a blue illusion token. Sure. Totally normal. Body's a little understated, but you know what? It's not bad. Battleground Geist. This is another one of those spirit buffers. However, I think for 5 mana, you need more out of your creatures. Bell Tower Sphinx, when it deals damage to it, that person mills. Again, not really something we're looking to do. When it enters the battlefield, you take the initiative. Those are the only words I needed to read here. The initiative is great for multiplayer games. So, in the same way that it's terrible for one-on-one games. So we're keeping that probably no matter what. Salvager of Secrets is, I mean, you see it right there. You're paying an extra mana for a power. Plus slightly better typing. Other than that, though, I don't see any reason to keep it. Serum Sovereign. Now this is a cool card. Again, it's for those Spellslinger type decks, where as you're casting those spells, you're able to Serum Visions. The reason it's called Serum Sovereign. Then Young Blue Dragon is a 5 mana 3/3, but it's also a 2-mana scry draw card. You know, I've played worse. That's keepable for now. Aether Snipe. When it ETBs, return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. It's a fine removal spell, but if it's a 3-mana removal spell, it's very slow. And if it's a 6-mana 4/4 that does it, it's also very slow. Let's get rid of it. Djinn of the Fountain, I had a lot of fun with in DMU draft, so I have some memories that are associated with it. But more than that, it's once again a Spellslinger payoff card, but this one can actually even protect itself. You know, if your opponent is doing something like a board wipe or targeted removal, you cast your random opt or whatever, and then this flickers out of existence until the next end step. Great. As a 6-mana 5/6 that has this line of text that when it attacks you can tap 2 other things, can't be blocked, it's mediocre. It's actually underwhelming. But the saving grace on this one is the island cycling. You don't need to have an island in play to get it, and those abilities are very, very powerful. We saw that with Lord of the Rings, where they made them too cheap and they were too good, literally seeing play in any format they're allowed in. So I think just asking double, but in a much lower power setting, is probably fine. However, when it comes to the idea, since it's the same idea here and here, would I rather have the 6-mana 5/6 that could potentially not be blocked, or the 7-mana 6/7 that is a lot harder to kill? I think the Dino is cooler, so we'll get rid of the Tidal Terror, and we'll keep the Marauding Brinefang. 90% of the time, they are the same card. You are island cycling this, putting the card in your yard, and getting yourself an island. But for the times that matter, I think it's probably better for the card to be hard to kill than for the card to be hard to block. Scholar of the Ages is actually a way better Salvager of Secrets. Same idea as the Archaeomancer, but for a few mana more, you get an extra instant or sorcery card. So, not terrible. Shadow Puppeteers is really cool. It's a 7-mana, so that's a lot. Flying Ward 2 4/4 Fairy, which might matter, and Wizard, which probably is going to matter. Onto the battlefield to make 2 black rogues. When you creature you control with flying attacks, you may have it become a red dragon with base power and toughness 4/4. All of those random spirits you're picking up, all those random flying men you had at the beginning of the game, they're now threats. So I think Shadow Puppeteers is in. And now for the big sea creature finale. Do we want Brynlin the Moonkraken, the 8-mana 6/8 that lets you return non-land permanents? Or do we want the 8-mana 8/8 that if you're able to kick it for 10 is a board wipe? I gotta be honest, this one's hard, because in my heart, I think the correct answer is Brynlin the Moonkraken. It just gives you more to do. It's an 8-mana 6/8 that when you cast it or any number of other big spells, which you're not going to have too many, this is Cube after all, but even just putting it into the battlefield by itself at 8 mana, you're bouncing a thing and putting a body into play. Whereas Slinvoda is a better body, but you have to put in so much more mana into it. We're only going to want one expensive sea creature. So that's something I'd like to hear from you guys. I like Slinvoda just because I think it's cooler. But let me know in the comments on this video, or if you're watching live, I would love to hear your opinion right now. We're only going to keep one of these big sea creatures, either the Kraken or the Leviathan. Let me know what you fancy and why you like it. Okay, anyway. Now we're down to the instance. I'm skipping over Kasmina because any planeswalkers we find are automatically going in. Even though I think Kasmina kind of sucks, I found a blue planeswalker. So your blue-white or your blue-black kind of control-y deck is going to love having just an extra game piece that is unaffected by things like board wipes or what have you. Kasmina stays in. Comes to these instants. These ones at 1 are really hard to say no to, because 1 is such a small cost, you know? Dispel counters an instant, so it's a little restrictive, but it costs 1. I think Downsize is definitely a card that we can think about, but even still, you know, somebody could be alpha striking, you could overload this, and even if they weren't attacking you, the person they were attacking into can now trade off a bunch of their creatures. It's hard to toss that. Relic Sorer is a fine way to animate an artifact. Spell Pierce is probably one of the best cards in the entire cube. It sees play all the way up to the tippy top of the power level. It's a 1 mana, basically, counterspell. Yeah, Elo, 1436. This is going to be one of the most powerful cards in the cube. Unsummon? Less so. I like Unsummon because it's so clean. Return target creature. It doesn't say you control, it doesn't say your opponent controls. It lets you just return target creature. This could be saving your thing from a removal spell, basically countering it. Or it could be something like getting rid of somebody's big bad to let you get in. Alright, so we're going to keep all these ones for now. I think the one that's most on the bubble is Downsize, but even then, it's got its virtues. Being a 1 mana card means that you get a lot more playroom than like a 4 mana card. Okay, on to the 2s. Counter a creature spell, put a +1/+1 counter on it. But we also have Remove Soul, counter a creature spell. I think that the upside on Essence Capture is not big enough to get rid of the pip. So, Essence Capture is gone. Spell from Maraska, return target non-land permanent to the controller's hand. If you have the City's Blessing, you may put that permanent on top of its owner's library instead. That is a very, very, very valid setback. But unlike the creature, can't even see which one it is right now. It's got to be something like Slippery Scoundrel, yeah. Unlike the Slippery Scoundrel, this is a lot harder to get as a spell, just because you're going to be doing this probably in the early game. By the time you're in the late game, this card almost loses its value, so I think we're going to get rid of that. Things like Run Away Together, I like more, especially in an environment like this, because it'll be able to rebuy you stuff. Heal from Reality and Run Away Together are basically the same card. They're not, because Run Away Together says controlled by different players, which is a very big difference. So I think we're going to get rid of Peel. And I think I'm going to get rid of Expel as well. Keep the rest. Confounding Riddle. Basically hard counter. Or look at the top 4. This reminds me of the one from... what is that set? The Egyptian set. God. Just gonna have to deal with it. I have to move on. Can't just sit here with dead air. But yeah, it reminds me a lot of that set, that spell that's at times, not anymore, but at times it used to see play in Control decks and Pioneer. Because that's a very good effect. For 3 mana, sure, counter it unless its controller pays 4, but in a cube-like setting, that might as well say counter it unless they pay infinity. And then look at the top 4 cards of your library, put 1 in your hand, the rest in your graveyard is also very, very good. The fact that they're not going to the bottom of the library, they're going into the grave, gives you options. Cool. Dissolve, counterspell, scry 1. Totally fine. Frantic Search, draw 2 cards, discard 2 cards, untap up to 3 lands. Cool. Frightful Delusion, counter target spell unless control pays 1. That player discards. That is not good enough. Unlike Confounding Riddle, which is asking to pay 4, somebody having a single extra mana, probably very common. Doesn't do enough. We already discussed this. Blue, unfortunately, isn't going to be an artifact color in this cube. Neutralize is great. Good counterspell, but if you don't need it, you'd cycle it away. Spell Snuff, I like a lot. I think in this environment specifically. I've liked this card since it was released. But it's hard to ask somebody in Modern to play 3 mana for a counterspell. And it's hard to ask somebody in Commander, where everybody's at 40 life, to play Spell Snuff, just in case they're on the verge of death. I think something like this probably splits the difference in a good way, so I'm going to keep that in for now. Steady Progress, Proliferate, draw a card. Excellent. One more Proliferator. Supreme Will, there it is. Confounding Riddle and Supreme Will are basically the same card. But, like I mentioned, I think Confounding Riddle is just better. It's got better art, in my opinion. It counters for 1 more, and it'll put the cards in your yard instead of in the bottom of your library, giving you way more options to play with them. We don't need 2 of that effect. We're totally cool. Thirst for Discovery. Your decks are likely to have a lot of basics in them, so we'll keep that. Chemist's Insight. Totally fine draw spell. Fact or Fiction. Even better than a fine draw spell. Fuel for the Cause. Now this is where things get a little tricky. Is there a world where I want to have a 4 mana counterspell just because it proliferates? Probably not. 4 mana is a lot to do nothing with. And I'm saying do nothing even though countering a spell isn't doing nothing. But it's just to untap with 4 mana and not have something as swingy as, say, a Wandering Emperor means that you're really committing to Fuel for the Cause. And if the turn goes by and nothing was really worth countering, you've just wasted a ton of your tempo. So we're going to pull it. Glimmer of Genius. Nope. Inspiration. Target player draws 2 cards. No. We've got these other 2 that I like better. There's no world that you're targeting your opponents. If this was like a 2-headed giant cube, this might make it over Fact or Fiction, just because you're able to target your opponent. But this being a Commander cube means that it's going to be 1v1v1v1, and you're never going to target your opponent with Inspiration. Remove, and then Into the Story. Again, another totally fine card. I love that it's instant speed, and somebody putting 7 cards in their graveyard is probably not going to be hard. So that'll cost 4 mana. 4 mana to draw 4 cards sounds very good to me. Okay, into the sorceries. Energy Tap. This is one of those weird ones because it does nothing until it breaks the game. In my head, as a Johnny, I'm thinking of all the ways you can break this. You know, something like evoking a card, energy tapping while the... Oh, you can't. It's sorcery speed. Never mind. So this really isn't all that helpful. If you've got a big monster on the field already, you're not going to need extra mana to finish off your opponent. Doesn't belong here. Selective Snare. This is the first of our blue-based board wipes. They don't tend to kill, they tend to bounce. It's going to get expensive. But it'll let you be way more, as it says, selective with it. Because instead of targeting everything, or everything your opponents control, it's going to let you say, this one, and this one. You know, if you've got going up against a bunch of humans, or a bunch of rogues, or what have you, even if you have some on your side, you don't have to target them. So, I like this a lot. It's going to take having a lot of options for me to even think about cutting this card. That's not the case with Stream of Thought. This is another one of those mill cards. It's okay if we were doing mill, but we're not. So goodbye. Chart of Course, excellent card draw for a blue-based tempo deck. No further notes. Flood of Recollection, again, no further notes. It lets you buy back something that's really cool. Strategic Planning, putting it in the graveyard is putting the things you don't choose in the graveyard is excellent. This art is fantastic. Nothing left to say. Mentor's Guidance. That is really friggin' cool. You're gonna have wizards. This is blue. You have a planeswalker as an option. Scry, then draw. I mean, it's a little expensive at 3 mana, but not awful. Sure. We'll keep that. Deep Analysis. Not only is it the title to one of my new series, check it out if you haven't already, but it's really one of the more classic cube cards of all times. You could pay 4 mana for this, but more likely what you're doing is you're finding some way to put it in the bin, and then you're going to pay 2 mana and 3 life to draw 2 cards. Totally cool. Dreadwaters. Again, we're not doing mill, unfortunately, so we'll get rid of that. Aethergale. Hey look, here's another blue-based board wipe. Return 6 target non-land permanents to their owner's hands. Now, the terrible thing is you need to have 6 targets. The great thing is if one of those targets becomes illegal, it'll still affect the other 5. So, that is possibly the best blue board wipe we could ask for. Step Through. It's a smaller version of Aethergale, but it also wizard cycles. We do have a lot of good wizards, but I don't know that we need to wizard cycle, so we'll get rid of that. Switcheroo. Exchange control of 2 target permanents. Something like this is left in the cube for the builders. This is something you put in the cube with no further plan. I mean, the fact that it's 5 mana is a lot, and it might end up being cut just based on that. But being like, you know, giving the switcheroo. Maybe your player thinks of just, okay, I'll play a bunch of tokens and switcheroo and steal like an Eldrazi. Sure. Totally reasonable. But maybe they have something nefarious in mind, too, that you didn't even realize was able to be done. And that's kind of the building challenge as a drafter. So this is the kind of card I love because it kind of plays with the drafters' minds. I do wish it cost a lot less. It costing 5 is just... And I understand, it's a blue semi-hard removal spell, but I don't like it at 5. Self-Reflection, create a token that's a target to top a creature you control, flashback 4. This is kind of the worst version of one of my kind of more favorite underrated cube cards, Quasi-Duplicate. If you've ever run Quasi-Duplicate, you know how much fun that can be, but it costs 1 and 2 blue. It's way less expensive than this. I think at 6 mana for the first cast and the 4 flashback for the next, it's just too pricey. Upheaval. Cyclonic Rift at Home. This card sucks because it hits you. This card's excellent in environments where you can mitigate that. If you're able to float a lot of mana before you cast this, you can start rebuilding first. If you haven't played your land drop, you're going to be the first one to play on the land. You and your opponents are going to need to discard cards, but maybe you've been using yours efficiently, so you have a full hand of cards where they're going to have to discard at end of turn. There's a lot of reasons you might want to play this. I'm not even mentioning the biggest one, which is Mana Rocks. I don't expect us to get many, if any. But in a case where you're able to play Mana Rocks, you can float all that, and then replay those rocks, really getting ahead of deploying ahead of your opponents. I'm going to keep Upheaval in here for now. It is quite a bit worse than Aether Gale, but it's also one of the most kind of classic cube cards. You have Upheaval, and you have the red version. I think it's called Armageddon, but I don't know. Worldfire. Worldfire is the name. Where you basically set the game back to 0. But you being the player that controls it means that you get to be doing it when it's advantageous to you. Said and done. Return an instant or sorcery from your graveyard to your hand, or tap 2-card creatures. These creatures don't untap. It's a little bit more flexible than... where is it? I know it's a sorcery. Flood of Recollection. It's a little bit more flexible for a little bit more cost for Said. But I think that it's just too pricey. You know, this is Commander, but it's also Cube. Having to do that for 3 mana is just too much. Maybe if the Said side was also an instant, we'd be having a different discussion. Because being able to do it at instant speed versus sorcery speed is something big for blue decks, so... But as it stands, this card is just does too little. Alright, on to the artifacts. Giant's Amulet is great. Equipped creature has +0/+1 and has hexproof as long as it's untapped. This is an excellent pretend... what's the blue one? Cycle of 5 in 5th Dawn. This is what we do editing for, chat. You know, I'll have thought of the card, but then I'll go look it up on Scryfall and then say it like it never was a thing. So this is a budget version of a card that would see play in basically any commander deck. It costs a lot to do. 1 to cast, 2 to equip, versus the oftentimes 0 equip costs that these things do. But beggars can't be choosers, and this can save your creature from removal. Absolutely, never ever cutting that. Lodestone Needle, when it enters the battlefield, tap up 1 target artifact creature, put 2 stun counters on it. No. Like, there's a... oh, it's got flash. Never mind. There we go. So this is something that at sorcery speed, no. At instant speed, it's kind of a maybe. Because this will get rid of something that might be attacking. And then it just sits on the board until you need it. And then when you need to do it, you can craft it with some artifact that is either in play or in your graveyard, and give yourself a nice little bonus, the Guidestone Compass. Okay, so that's going to be kept. Mobilizer Mech. Artifact becomes true. Another target vehicle you control becomes an artifact creature till end of turn. Cool idea. But I think having Crew 3 for a Power 3 creature is not cool for me. Pirate Hat. When creature attacks, draw a discard, equip Pirate, equip 2. Yeah, it's totally fine. It's an expensive short sword, or name your poison. Leonin Scimitar, or what have you. Horned Kopeth. The card they've printed a million times. It's an expensive version of that, but it also gives the ability to draw discard. Totally fine. Alright, now for the last stuff. Enchantments. Curiosity. Always going to be kept. Quest for Ancient Secrets. We're not going to do mill, so we don't need the quest. Seal of Removal is a slow removal card. Witness Protection is great against commanders. Writ of Passage. The reason I like this is because of the forecast. It's uncounterable, and it can continually give you that same kind of benefit. Much like if you've ever played Hearthstone, this is much like a hero power. You put 2 mana into it, you target a creature of yours with power 2 or less, now it's unblockable. I don't think you're ever going to put this on a creature. I think you're going to forecast this. So, it's almost an instant. Carry away, control enchanted equipment. Cool idea. Chronic Flooding, tap. Yeah, we're not doing mill. We'll pull out the mill cards. Cradle of Safety, Enchanted Creature's Hexproof. 1 more way to save your creature. 1 more way to remove a creature. One more way to remove a creature. And they're both at flash speed. Love that. Target creature gains flying. Nah. Eyes everywhere. Again, this is exactly what I was talking about before with the other one. Eyes everywhere gives you the same kind of builder's joy that Switcheroo might, but it also isn't crap when it's not being used. You scry every upkeep, and then you put the 6 mana into it to exchange it and target non-land permanent. Very cool. Guild Summit. This is going to depend on what our land base looks like. If we've got a lot of guilds, sure, we'll run it. But if we don't, then this card's an easy cut. But we can't make that decision until we've gone and seen the land base. Mystic Redaction, scry 1, the upkeep. Whenever you discard a card, each opponent mills 2. Yep, not doing mill stuff, so we don't need it. Public Enemy, enchanted creatures. Now there is a great commander card hiding right here in plain sight. You tag this onto somebody's, very beefy card that they don't want to get rid of, and now they're the target. They're the Public Enemy. Great card. Traveler's Coke, one of ETBs, draw a card, and now. The thing about auras, and I've mentioned this before, is they're asking to be 2 for 1. You put that on a creature, you name whatever your opponent that you're going to attack is going to have, and then before you even get to put it on the creature, they kill the creature, meaning they've killed the creature, they've killed the aura, you don't get the draw card, and you've wasted 3 mana in the process. Aquatic Incursion. Battlefield, create 2 merfolks with hexproof, and it gives them the ability to not be blocked. A little expensive for 2 bodies. The fact that they have hexproof is kind of okay. We'll keep that on the bubble. Speaking of, bubble, gone. Time of Ice is a very slow Wrath. Yeah, we're not transforming anything, so Corruption of Tawashi's out. Mind Control is very cool. Confiscate's very cool. In Bolus's Clutches. These 3 are the same spell. Mind Control is the cheapest one. Confiscate lets you grab any permanents. We're going to toss In Bolus's Clutches. Again, it's got the cool factor, but it being a legendary enchantment... Actually, I'm thinking about legendary sorceries. Okay. So I think In Bolus's Clutches is kind of cooler than Confiscate. I can't think of a world in which you would care, either for or against, the permanent you're stealing being legendary. So we're going to pretend that doesn't exist. They both say enchant permanent, you control enchanted permanent. So here's another thing I'm thinking. In my main cube, I have a very, very small sub-theme about legendaries mattering. Wizards has been doing things recently where they're making legendaries actually matter. So, giving them the legendary super type would be helpful in that regard. However, this environment doesn't have it, so I think the legendary thing just becomes a drawback. So we're going to get rid of it. I love Bolus's Clutches, I really do, but I think Confiscate is probably just better because it doesn't have that rider. So we'll save those changes. And what are we at now? 105. That's pretty close to where I want to be. So let's go back through the creatures and kind of take one more stab at things. So the Wind Robber I like only because of Abiding Grace. It's a 1-mana 1/1 flying man that can self-sacrifice and draw you a card. Omenhawker activate abilities. Let's look at the abilities. We've got the Pteramander, Spectral Sailor, Daring Saboteur, Nautilus, the Guard, Parselmere, Acquisition Octopus, Mistwalker. Okay, so Omen Hawker actually has a huge place in this. I did not realize just how useful this card would be. So, Soul Ring at home is going to make it. Wind Robber's probably going to make it. I think Tideshaper is out as the low man on the totem pole. You know, Pteramander, Spectral Sailor, both flying men, same as Merfolk Wind Robber. This one will draw you cards. This one will be a very big and scary threat. And this one can draw you cards potentially again and again. Tideshaper, you're out. Alright, back to the twos where we have a bunch. So the two legendaries that we kept are going to stay in. Thrumming Bird's going to stay in. Daring Saboteur is going to stay in. Academy Lore Master is going to stay in. Hisoka's Guard is going to stay in. Let's do a count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. How many 2-drops are we even going to have? Give me a second. I'm just kind of ballpark things off of my cube. Obviously, we're building two very different environments, but I just want to get an idea. My 360 has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So let's say I'm going to have maybe 8 2-drops, and 6 of them I've already counted. So that means cards we're looking at cutting are the Night Veil Sprite, Oracle of Tragedy, Deranged Assistant, Silvergill Adept, Parselmere. You know what, Parselmere, you're out. You just got to make cuts sometimes. Nautilus, you're on the bubble. I think Deranged Assistant gets there because it does put the card in your graveyard. So I think that'll get there. But it's tough to know. So I'm going to go down to the next step. Threes. Again, we have so many threes. Upheaval. Now there's a thought. Living Lore will let you cast it for free. If you're able to do a free upheaval, then you are absolutely able to rebuild first. But that might be the only thing I'm really looking at with that stupid Living Lore. This is something you kind of want to build with in mind. Again, as a drafter, I like having the idea in my head of, oh, I could exile anything. I think between the two of these, between Dreadmaw and Living Lore, I'd rather have the Living Lore. So let's just get rid of the Dreadmaw for now. But it is a good chance Living Lore has to go as well. Because let's say it's a 4-mana 4/4, and then when it dies, you can draw 2 cards. Whoop-de-doo. It's got some play, though. Riverwise Augur is a Brainstorm. Like, it's legitimately just a Brainstorm on a body. Brainstorm's a very good card. This is a Merfolk and a Wizard. It's something I would want to blink or get back to my hand. I really like that card here. I think Siren Reaver is probably removed because it's just, it doesn't do enough. Skatewing Goodbye is very cool. Making these cuts is very, very difficult because there's so many bonus things to everything. We're going to get rid of one of these guys. I do want to hear back from you in the comments. I'm very... As they're both super expensive, you're probably not going to be casting either of them. But assuming that you're able to cast one of them, would you rather have the one that will bounce a thing for certain, or the one that costs 100 million mana, but can reset the board state? That's tough. So for now, I'm going to leave them both in. We got a few more cuts. I think that brings us down to 100. Yep. Alright, let's go back to the instants and sorceries. And the enchantments. Yeah, there's no way we're running 15 enchantments. Seal of removal, you're gone. One of these two is going to go. They both do basically the same thing. They're flash. Enchant creature. Loses all abilities. I think Eaten by Piranhas is slightly better, because it affects the power and toughness. But that also means it's easier to kill. But either way, I think that that's the one we gotta keep. Cradle of Safety is a spell to save your dude. Is that worth running over just a generic counterspell? I actually don't think so. So we'll remove that. Aquatic Incursion. Costs a lot of mana to do that. Time of Ice is great because it will absolutely get rid of 2 creatures. But then, if your opponents are swinging at all before your turn again, it will bounce those as well, just as a thing. Plus, it gives you have the ability to tap it with some of your tappers. I like that a lot. I don't think we need 2 Mind Controls. Do we want Mind Control for 5 mana or Confiscate for 6? Mind Control is much more iconic, both with the name and what you think. It's very iconic. And it's cheaper by 1. But it only lets you get creatures. With Confiscate, you can get anything, including stuff that might be getting recurring value. In like a battle cruiser style commander game, I would much rather have Confiscate because you can grab things like Heuristic Study or what have you with it. But in this environment, you might not be grabbing too much. Like, what do you even care about? Hexgold Hoverwings? Vow of Duty? Valor? Like, there's not a whole lot here that is screaming it needs to be taken care of. Now, obviously, we've still got 3 colors to look at. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put Confiscate in the maybe board, just so I know that we have it, and it'll just hide there. If you see, if we use the maybe board, now it's sitting right here, where I know that it exists, and if we need to backfill it, we can just open the maybe board and get it. Alright, so I think I'm actually pretty happy with that there. Got the list down to about the same that we got blue down. We've still got to bring them down by about a third each. But that's something we can kind of do more as the cube takes shape. Thank you to anybody who joined me on this adventure, whether now or in the future. And I'd love to hear your thoughts, especially about our 2 sea monsters. So, in the future, you're watching this, just let me know. Do you think Brynolin should be the Kraken that we keep? Or do you think Slinvoda is the Leviathan that's worth running? I want to hear why, and I want to hear what you think. Anyway, that said, thank you so much for watching this, and I'll catch you guys tomorrow with the next episode of Trash to Treasure. Take care.